look, don't get me wrong. I really do enjoy this car sometimes, but other times it is a severe pain in the... So what do I mean by that? Let me give you a quick and very brief rundown of what's going on. So for basically as long as I've owned this car, I've been experiencing some intermittent issues with it. And a lot of that has to do, it seems now, has to do with fueling. But what I thought the issue was actually having to do with false knock or some just crazy, for whatever reason, knock retard. And I just could not figure it out. I changed knock sensors. I pretty much made sure nothing was rattling and causing false knock or anything. I couldn't figure it out. And it seems to only be getting worse now. Let me kind of go back just a little bit further before those issues started happening and touch base on another issue that only plagued my car a couple times, thankfully, and never actually left me completely stranded. So I remember it like it was yesterday, and in fact it was last year. I was up cleaning my car and everything's fine, and then, you know, I get to turn the car off, I park it right where it's at actually. So I come back out, you know, I turn on the ignition and everything, get ready to start the car, and then I realize instead of starting, it does something like this. It just keeps cranking. And I was like, what in the heck is that? I thought it was the battery. So I remember having taken my car somewhere to get serviced, and they checked the battery, and the battery was showing that the cell was bad. And I had a hard time believing that at first, but I'm like, you know what? I don't have time. I quickly called up my local Advanced Auto Parts. I said, hey, you got so-and-so battery for so-and-so car? They're like, yes, we do. All right, put it to the side. I'm coming. And it was like freaking 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm running to Advanced Auto Parts getting a battery because for some reason the car wasn't starting, even though it was turning over. And I never understood that. Then another problem happened. It got to the point where it wouldn't even start. It wouldn't even crank. It would just stop. You would hit the starter button and it would just go clink and nothing. You know, after some, you know, small repairs and whatnot, it fixed itself. I was like, okay, well, either it fixed itself. I thought I fixed it, but at this point in time, I think it just fixed itself. The car's not doing it now. I did that. I did the anti-flood mode just to showcase the symptom that I was experiencing. So, of course, Matt Robinson over at Gearhead Tuning, he's a good guy. He's a great guy, and I've been having this problem for some time now. And, you know, he's been racking his brain, I'm sure, trying to help me. And for whatever reason, this is one of those issues that's hard to track down. The problem has grown to a point and gotten to a point where now it's obvious. So what is the problem and how do I fix it? Well, I'm hoping the problem is as simple as the fuel pump control module. So just one of the other very fun quirks of this car, and sometimes wonder why I continue owning this car, but then once I put my foot down and gap some Mustangs and Chargers and stuff, then I realize why I like this car so damn much. So very recently, I flashed back to the tune that I was having trouble with, my Gearhead tune I was having trouble with. Now this is a Gearhead E30 tune optimized for use with methanol injection. So it is pretty much within reasonable limits as much as you can do on stock components. There's probably a little bit of room that can be made if tweaked further, but just how it's set up now, it is pretty much maxed out where it can be. That was the tune I was having the most issues with. Now if you look back onto my video I made regarding the knock sensors and the issues I was having there, I'll leave a card up above. You can check that out if you haven't already. In that video, I was showcasing how I was getting some severe positive knock on part throttle. I thought it was only on that tune because it only did it in that tune. And so I went to swap back to that tune to start troubleshooting it more. So maybe we can get this stuff worked out. However, I haven't been lucky. I have not been lucky to track down the issue and what's causing it. And I was pretty much convinced that it was the knock sensors. So of course, after replacing the knock sensors and going through that whole thing and then still not fixing the issue, I was pretty upset. All hope is not lost, because just recently, trying to troubleshoot the issue again, I've taken notice of a couple things, couple areas I might have issues. Obviously, an OBD2 car will let you know if something takes a crap. Nothing had shown up though. Just recently, the car decided to say, hey, you have low fuel pressure on your bank 1 fuel rail. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's new. Hold on one moment.
Good morning, how can I help you?
Sorry, had to have my coffee. I just haven't been there this morning, and I like to think coffee helps. I think it's more helpful with making my bowels move, but hopefully it's increasingly helpful to put a little pep in my step. But Matt suggested that my fuel pump control module could be going bad. I was like, oh, well, I guess it could be worse. It is a little bit expensive to purchase if you don't want to wait for shipping, which I didn't. On Tasca, with shipping, it's like 50, 60 bucks. But I need to get this problem under control now because I'm having really bad fuel pressure issues, and I don't want to send my engine to its early demise because I want to wait for USPS or so-and-so to get me a part here by next week. Good morning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day. This Dunkin', everyone's always so nice. All right. I taste damn good. Called up one of my local Ford parts distribution centers, asked if they had one available. They certainly did have one available for the cool price of $80. I'm pretty sure that didn't include tax. Before I go there, on my way there, I'm going to go ahead, I'm gonna stick the GoPro to the window here and see if I can capture on video as best as I can what it's doing. That way you just have good reference in case this is something that you may have a problem with. All right, so here's the X4. The things you're going to want to focus on the most is these PIDs right here. This is your OAR. Negative 0.81 is a little low. Max is negative 0.96. And of course your knock sensor reading. Negative, of course, means it's adding timing. Any number without a dash next to it means it's pulling timing. That's the number we don't want to see at all. And something I want to say real quick, I've noticed when the timing goes positive, the exhaust note gets a lot raspier. My assumption is that is when things are getting a little too lean. It's changing the exhaust note. So that would definitely have a little bit of correlation there that I never quite understood before, mainly because I never put the two bits of information together. Part throttle here. So it seems that we're doing pretty good today. I should still be able to get it to do it, but this is the problem. It doesn't always do it. There it goes. Look at that. Part throttle, and it's starting to come down now, but we were holding, we went up to 3 degrees. It's pulling back 3 degrees of timing. Part throttle wasn't full throttle at all. Sometimes I will see it at wide open throttle. So I'm just gonna hit it real quick and see what happens, and I'll jump out of it. Okay, so it didn't do it at wide open throttle. I saw a 1/4 degree added, so it's definitely a part throttle issue, and that's what's been happening. So as you can see, that would be an issue, because if you're just doing this to pass someone or whatever, it just picks and chooses when it wants to kind of pull back timing, but then after it pulls back so much timing, then it drops to OAR. And of course, that scales back your timing, that scales back your boost, everything. You lose all of your power. Okay, so I'm happy I caught that on video, because I have not been able to capture that in a log to send to Matt so he could help me out. So that's the issue I've been having, needless to say. What I thought was a false knock issue is, I think now, a fuel pressure issue. And what I think is happening is, with the tunes demanding, with the cars demanding the fuel pressure isn't enough. So it's causing a probably very slight lean condition, and of course that is causing some knock issues. And of course that's bad kind of knock issues. A lean knock is bad knock, and we don't want to create further knock by making one of my rods start knocking. So yeah, this is definitely a very important issue we need to take care of ASAP. But regardless of all that, let me touch base on another little small tidbit of information. Ford actually had a pretty big recall. That fuel pump module would actually basically catastrophically fail, and it would just completely stop working. So when it completely stops working, obviously so does your fuel pump. And when your fuel pump stops working, well, you understand what happens then. The crap part is my car is not part of that recall. I know that there was no open recalls at the time of purchase, which would have been way after Ford issued the recall on these fuel pump modules. Therein lies some of the annoying issues there. It seems that even though there was a massive recall for the part, my car wasn't recalled, but here I am still having said issue with that part. It just didn't happen as soon as the other cars. So I find that very annoying. I guess because it happened, because not only is it a safety hazard, of course, it can cause engine damage, and yeah, so it's a big issue, needless to say. I am here at Packer Norris Parts. I'm gonna run in, grab the part, and I'll be right back out to finish up this little bit of ramp before we go back and put the part on. Here is the SOB, man. Here it is. So I'm assuming this is a updated part that isn't prone to crapping out so easily. And it is a Ford part, so hopefully yeah, it ain't gonna have any issues once I put it in. Okay, so I knew this was easy. I didn't think it was this easy. So you pull the back seat down, passenger side, right here. Just pull this clip out right here, and just remove this whole side piece of carpet here, trim carpet, and look, there it is, right there. Pretty simple. Actually, it's probably, let's see here. Let me put the camera down just 1 second. There we go. The connector, everything seems fine to that. So I'm just gonna set that to the side there. And what appears to be two 10mm bolts. I'm sorry, nuts. There's one. Sneak back down here. There's two. Slide that off. Okay. There's that. Thread that on. Thread that on. Tighten it up there. My socket back, I need that. Tighten it up there. It is indeed tight. Reconnect it. And there it is. There we go. Hopefully that fixes the issue. Okay, right off the bat, I can notice some things. Very, very small amounts of throttle. Very big, I mean, just feathering the throttle ever so lightly. Watching the fuel pressure, rail pressure, I'm seeing it easily get into the 1,000 PSI range with very minimal throttle input. See, before that wasn't happening. It does seem to want to peak into the proper fuel pressure range a lot sooner, like 2,000, I mean barely 2,000 RPMs. I mean, I'm barely on the gas pedal and I'm hitting over 1,000 PSI of fuel pressure. That's awesome. So that's definitely something new. I'm just going to do some part throttle tests here. So part throttle, okay, it definitely feels a lot stronger. So that's good. Stab at part throttle again. All right. So it spiked to 1.24 positive. So it was pulling back 1.24 degrees of timing. However, it started going down quickly into the negatives. at full throttle there, it spiked at 2 degrees positive knock. And it as the pool progressed, it went back to into the negatives. So $80 fuel pump module, and we're still having issues. So I don't know if the car maybe needs to relearn that you know, the fuel pump driver module thing is you know, working right. I don't know if I need to do a cam reset. Suppose I should try that real quick. All right, so I haven't done the cam reset. I have been driving around a few minutes now since that last clip, and I'm monitoring my fuel I'm monitoring my fuel rail pressure, and it seems to be doing what it's supposed to do now. So max fuel pressure at the rail, according to my X4, is 2,149 psi. I am seeing that number, and it will hold steady once you get higher enough in the RPMs. That's a good thing. So I guess it's learning, it's adjusting. Now that the fuel pump thing is doing what it needs to do, I guess. I suppose this definitely does need a little bit more drive time. I'm just going to continue maybe driving around just a few more minutes, maybe do a few more runs and whatnot, and see if anything changes. At full throttle, at least, it looks like it's mostly fine. At part throttle, I need to make sure, because that was always the issue to begin with, was part throttle. I'm definitely noticing improvements. I'm definitely seeing 2,000 psi or more of fuel pressure much earlier in the RPM range than I'm ever used to seeing. So that's definitely good. I want to see exactly when I hit 2,000 psi of fuel pressure, at what RPM, and at what load. So I'm gonna lock it in the third gear here, and usually Matt always wants to take logs at third gear at 2,500 RPM. I suppose that's where it's the most load, the proper amount of load, and to be able to determine the proper amount of fuel pressure and everything. So I'm just gonna stab it here, and I want to see exactly where the fuel pressure spikes to. Okay, so it immediately spiked to 1,500 psi. Right at 3,000 RPM, we have about 2,000 psi of fuel pressure. And that's good. Now, something to keep in mind, this is just 93. There's no ethanol in this tank. So that's why fuel pressure is crucial, to make sure you maintain good fuel pressure, because the ethanol, of course, you know, it's going to lower fuel pressure because the demand for it's going to be higher. Everything is going to work harder to get that same amount of fuel. All right, 2,500. Stab it. All right, 16 psi, and already 2,000 psi, right at 3,000 RPM. Let's see, we got max fuel pressure at, so we get our max, which is only a couple hundred more psi at 5,000 RPMs. But we're getting 2,000 psi of fuel pressure at the rail, just at 3,000 RPMs. And let me see, I want to do one more test, because it's the low RPMs that's crucial with E30 tuning and everything, to have really good fuel pressure. And I'm assuming, I've never gotten this answer, but I'm assuming you want at least 1,500 at the minimum fuel pressure at wide open throttle at the lower RPMs there, if I had to take a guess. Now we're at 1,500 RPM. I'm gonna stab it and see what kind of fuel pressure I get at the stab. So at the stab, it immediately jumps up to 1,100, 1,100, 1,300, 1,500 by 2,500. So you're getting 400 psi of fuel pressure with about 500 RPMs there. So that's not too bad. So, and I'm not seeing any more positive knock. So that's a positive thing. I think that was definitely the issue. So hopefully, if you are experiencing similar issues, maybe this video is going to be helpful to you in terms of identifying the issue and then resolving it. This is just one of those weird quirks with this car, but so far the car is running definitely a lot stronger now on my 93 tune than I ever remember it being. And I think we've actually hit the nail on the head this time, so awesome. And with that, of course, that's the end of this video. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and if you want to see more content like this, then go ahead, subscribe to the channel, and keep a lookout for the next video.